So the goal today is to continue with the random values, and we're going to create a magic 8-ball today. So I'm going to demonstrate the project first. So here, this is my end. So what's going to happen is you have an 8-ball, it's going to shake it, and then it's going to give you a random message. That's just the general idea of an 8-ball. So you're noticing a couple things, like when it kind of resets. So here's the 8-ball. I can see the 8-ball. When I click the green flag, it's supposed to shake the 8-ball. And then I turn it around, which means the 8-ball looks different, and it gives me the answer to my question. So I'm pretending I'm doing it in real life. So like, I'd ask a question, am I going to get an A? And here it says concentrate and ask again. Okay, am I going to get an A? So I repeat it, it shakes, shows me the outside, shows me the inside, and then I'm seeing it's choosing just a random message, and that's the idea of how it's going to be random. So that's your general goal. So when you click the flag, it should shake, and then it should flip over and give you some random message, which would be the answer to your, again, theoretical question. So what you're going to have is I'm going to provide you with a quick little starting thing. So you'll have this file to start with, and the reason I want you to start with this file is it's got a few things built in for you. So the idea is there's a few things you're going to use that you already know. So for example, like we've talked about motion. So let's say when I click the green flag, I want the 8-ball to be there. So like I can tell the 8-ball its coordinates right there. So when I click the flag, I probably want it to always reset to where it starts. But we have a lot of different ways we can create motion, right? We've seen these things here, so we can use them. So like for example, so maybe I want it to first of all, I want it to move 10 steps to the right, and then maybe I want it to wait just like a little bit, like 0.2 of a second, and then I want it to move left by 10 steps. Let's see how that works. So it's moving. It's not very fast, so to maybe make it shake faster, I can do like 0.1 or something. That's faster. Let's see if I can do 0.0. So you can see I can create motion. Now, other things that you're going to need to use, you're going to need to use the broadcast. And then obviously certain things will need to receive things. But what I want you to know, the reason that I've given you things is like when I display the answer to my magic 8-ball, like when we saw that in the video, it didn't display this side. So when you click a sprite, if you go into the costumes, you'll notice that I have costumes built in. So costume 1 looks like this. Costume 2 is the back. So like the idea for me is I'm thinking, well, after it does all that movement, what it needs to do is it's going to need to change its costume, right? So there's going to be a look there. So I need to switch the costume to the front or the back, right? And then I'm going to need to do some stuff. So when I flip it over, that's when I need to get a random message. So this other sprite is going to be your random messages. What I want you to notice about this sprite though is that they're labeled, or there's 20 of them. So sprite number 1 all the way to sprite number 20. So the idea is you can have a sprite change costume just based off of a number. So like as an example, I'm going to work with this sprite. I can't see it right now because it's not shown on the screen, which would be something you want to know. Like this thing shouldn't pop up until after it shakes and after the ball turns around. But just to demonstrate some things, just so it does it right away. But I can have like this sprite, which we can't see. I can have it change costumes. Well, I guess I can do it with the Magic 8-ball. So let's say, just so we're clear, like after it moves, right now I hit this and it's moving, but after it moves, like I want it to switch to the backside of the costume. So like after it moves, I want it to flip over, right? And then eventually this sprite should come in and it should show, right? So it needs to wait for some sort of message, right? So probably after I switch, or maybe like after I switch, and then I'm going to want to broadcast to somebody, hey, you should probably show yourself. But the idea is when we're working with the switch costumes, what I want you to notice, there's costume 1 and 2. Now, just to show you within operators, these boxes can be filled with anything essentially. So I'm just going to pick some mathematical operators just so I can use numbers. So if I slide that in there, I'm going to type in the number 0 plus 2. So I know 0 plus 2 is just 2, but what the computer is going to do is I'm going to have it start, so right when it's clicked, it needs to go back to its original costume. So I'm going to have the look switch back to the front, and then it goes back to where it started, and then it's going to shake. So right now it flips over back to where its thing started, it shakes, but then once it's done shaking, it needs to flip over. But what I can see is if I give it a numerical input, like right now this is just the number 2, it's going to go to the second costume, right? So if I go to it, it's currently on the second costume. So in other words, the switch costume can take a a numerical input. So a different way of programming costume 1, well, that could be the number 10, sorry, costume 2, 10 minus 8. So again, the computer's smart enough to figure out this is the number 2. So it's going to go into the costumes and pick the second one. So I just phrased it differently, but I clicked it, switches back, it goes to where it started, flips over, and then it knows this is a 2. So what you'll want to do then is, like for this one, like the prediction sprite, there's 20 different costumes. So you want to randomly pick a costume for it to go to, and that'll be the way that you can get that random thing to show up. So there's a lot of hints in here. So again, remember, like after this flips over, then that's when I want the message to come up. So maybe here it's going to broadcast a message, right? It's going to broadcast and say, hey, I flipped over. So this sprite, when you receive a message, well, then you should probably be visible, because now I want to see what you look like. But what costume are you going to choose? Well, I don't know. I want to choose any random costume between 0 and 20. So they'll always match up. So for right now, I'm going to set it just to show you. Let's make it go to costume 4. So for costume 4, I'm going to set that just as a number as 10. Let's do 2 plus 2. So I'm just going to kind of get rid of this for a second just so we can make sure it works. It's not receiving a message yet. But we should see it's going to mess up. But as soon as I start this, it should show, and then it should go to costume 4. So I can see right now it's showing without a doubt. So if I click on this sprite and go to costume 4, that's without a doubt. If I change that script and just make it 10 plus 12, now it knows to go to 10 plus 2. Now it knows to go to costume 12. And if I go look at that sprite again, costume 12 is the one it chooses. So hopefully you can find a way to use the random number to help you pick a costume, and then integrate all your other skills to make sure, again, that you can produce one final product.